you.
I just got a text that Chicago's driving the price up and Philly's out. I don't know if that's true or not. Which I don't know if I'll make a couple of calls. I don't even know if that's gonna happen, but
I'm going to have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia, I'll tell you that.
The New York Giants. For this final NFC East team preview, before we move on to the AFC East, we're going to ask the question of how good can the Giants be in the 2025 NFL season? And that's a very fluctuating question, and a lot of people instantly would probably say they're going to be pretty shite. But I think it's more nuanced than that. We all know the past couple of seasons have been tumultuous, to say the least. After finishing the 2022 season with a 9-7-1 record, making it to the divisional round, losing against the Philadelphia Eagles that season, things look promising. They extended Daniel Jones, but their fatal flaw and mistake was not extending Saquon Barkley. We all know how that turned out. That's why I showed the little clip of Joe Shane and John Mara from the offseason Hard Knocks in 2024. And Saquon ended up winning a Super Bowl in his division that very same season. So that was very tough for them. But I will say for the New York Giants, though, they do have a lot of really good pieces, and look no further to really their defense, because that's their one strong suit. You have Dexter Lawrence, one of the best defensive linemen in the league, had 9 sacks in only 12 games this past year as well, too. He's a real great foundation there. And they also added Brian Burns last year in a trade. They still have Kayvon Thibodeau. And of course, this year in the 2025 NFL draft, they selected Abdul Carter 3rd overall, who a lot of people come to being the next coming of Micah Parsons. Not only time will tell with that, but he definitely has the makings of being a generational type of defensive lineman, but he will have to put it all together to do that. But that defense looks very strong. And then you look at the offseason additions that defense had too as well. They brought in Chauncey Golston from the Dallas Cowboys, who had a career high 5.5 sacks last season and 13 starts, to add as a rotational piece to that defensive line. So that's some more help there. And they also added a solid defensive back at the safety position in Javon Holland from the Miami Dolphins. Still a really young player, and he's aggressive and really solid in coverage. The only question is how he's going to be in coverage, and the fact that he's only had 1 interception in the past 2 seasons. But I think that's a really good signing for them, especially after they lost Xavier McKinney in 2024, leaving to go to the Green Bay Packers. More obvious signings that we already know: they signed Russell Wilson, who's most likely going to be in that bridge quarterback role ultimately until they want to slide in their 25th overall first-round pick in Jackson Dart, who I still have a lot of questions about, but I think it is easy to say that he was probably a top 3 quarterback prospect in this class. That's not saying much, though, because this was not as strong as a quarterback class as we saw in the 2024 draft class, or even in 2023 as well. But hey, we'll see how Jackson Dart potentially is. I still have my questions, and definitely the type of offense that he was in an Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin, it isn't necessarily replicated amongst NFL offensive schemes in the modern day NFL. But I think Jackson Dart, he is a solid prospect. He has some solid mobility, and he had a really good 2024 season at Ole Miss. Threw for over 4,200 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, and had a completion percentage of over 69.3%. So that's some really good stats for him. He's a solid prospect and just turned 22 in May. So the Giants are for sure hoping that he's going to be their next answer at the quarterback position and can have a great rapport with their head coach, Brian Daboll, who has been known, who really helped transform Josh Allen to get to where he is now. And I know it's been a few years since Daboll was the coordinator in Buffalo, but he had an integral role in the development of Josh Allen. So we will see if Jackson Dart can develop into a solid quarterback. I'm not saying he's going to be Josh Allen, because that's going to be a huge stretch, but if he can be the quarterback that can be steady in New York to finally get this team potentially back to the playoffs, we're going to talk about that aspect and really just a lot of different things. But I think the best thing that the Giants have done in the past couple of seasons, I mentioned the draft pick this year in Abdul Carter, but drafting Malik freaking Nabers, 6th overall in the 2024 NFL draft, had a sensational rookie season, and I think he'll for sure build on that. If you look at the stats, he had 109 receptions, which was 5th amongst all NFL wide receiver and really just pass catchers, of course, if you want to throw in the tight ends as well too. Had over 1,200 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns, averaging 11 yards per reception. He was a dynamic receiver for sure in his first season, and I think he'll continue to build upon that. And that's with not even great quarterback play. I mean, we know who was throwing him the ball last year: Drew Lock, Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito. Come on now, let's be for real. So Malik Nabers, even with a player like Russell Wilson, he'll be able to get to his spots and have some really similar stats, or I think even better stats this upcoming season, because I think Malik Nabers, he potentially, you can make the argument, is already near a top 10 receiver and could continue to climb that ladder, just the type of pass catcher that he is and the type of explosive player that he is with his incredible yak ability. To me right now with this team, the 2 biggest questions are for the offensive line and the quarterback position, because if you look at it in their totality, the New York Giants have really missed with their selections in the offensive line. Look no further than Evan Neal, who is right now 2nd in the depth chart at the left guard. He was drafted 7th overall in the 2022 NFL NFL draft. You don't draft a player in the first round that high to end up being second on the depth chart in their 4th season. That is definitely terrible. And if you look at their offensive line, Andrew Thomas, John Runyon, John Michael Schmitz Jr., Greg Van Roten, and Jermaine Eleminor, I bet most of you guys don't even know who they are. So that's not necessarily a bad thing all the time because, I mean, of course, offensive linemen, they aren't the most flashy players. It's about getting it done in the trenches. But that's also a red flag in terms of having some continuity that you know can perform at a high level and pass protect and help in the running game for sure. Now, we'll see how Russell Wilson manages things, potentially how Jackson Dart manages things too. We'll see. We'll for sure have some glimpses of Jackson Dart in the preseason as well. So that'll be a factor as well too. But one positive thing on the offense for sure, I think a player like a Tyron Tracy Jr., who was picked in the 5th round last season, looked really good at the running back position. I think he's going to continue to build upon that 2024 season that he had, having a solid 192 carries for 839 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. So that's a solid piece there. So he was able to get some good stats with that offensive line. Along with Tracy, they also added Cam Scadaboo, who they drafted in the 4th round. And we saw the type of run that he had, particularly in the college football playoffs. A dynamic running back at his 5'11", 216-pound frame. Had a phenomenal season last year at Arizona State, rushing for over 1,700 rushing yards, having 293 carries for 21 touchdowns. And also in the receiving game, he was dynamic, having 45 receptions for 605 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. So overall had 24 total touchdowns and over 2,300 all-purpose yards. So Scadaboo was certainly going to help be a weapon for that offense for the Giants too. So that helps with all the questions that they have with their offensive line. To have 2 supplemental backs and a Tyron Tracy Jr. and a Cam Scadaboo, that certainly is a good sign for that Giants offense. But I'm still not convinced overall with their group. Yes, they have Malik Nabers, who I did mention has a potential to already be a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, alongside pieces in that wide receiver core with a player like a Darius Slayton, who's also solid, and a Lil Jordan Humphrey, who they signed, and Wandale Robinson as well too to that group. But I still have a lot of questions overall with the steadiness of that offensive line, because as we all know, if you don't have a competent offensive line, you are absolutely cooked. For this team, I think there's still a lot of questions. I think Giants fans should hopefully expect improvement, but that's not saying a lot considering that they were 3-14 in the 2024 NFL season. So yeah, a lot to be desired for sure. So with that being said, before we answer the question of how good the Giants can be in this upcoming 2025 season, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and turn on post notifications. We know what we post about here, videos about the NFL, NBA, Marvel, DC, pop culture, college football, and basketball. A lot of content on the way, guys. Follow me on Instagram at Swaggy Russ and TikTok at Swaggy Russ02 for short content videos and things of that nature. And with that being said, let's answer how good the Giants can be in this upcoming 2025 NFL season. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I'm not gonna drag this out. I think at best the Giants can be 7-10 or 8-9 at best. And considering that they were 3-14 last season, that's for sure improvement. That's not gonna make you the playoffs in this current NFL, especially in NFC nowadays, but that would be a really good improvement. And I think that would ensure their general manager Joe Shane and Brian Daboll to have their positions going into the 2026 season. Because if they were to improve their win total by 4 to 5 games, that's for sure progress, and that's ultimately what you want in the NFL. You're not gonna win the Super Bowl instantly. It doesn't happen all the time for teams, and I think the Giants are for sure far away from that. If you look at the different feats that they've hit since winning the last Super Bowl in the 2011-2012 season, they've only made the playoffs twice since 2011. They made it in 2016, and I mentioned earlier, and they made it in 2022 when they won a playoff game against the Minnesota Vikings. 2 times in 14 seasons. That is atrocious. So, like I said, winning 4 to 5 more games this upcoming year would be a step in the right direction to ultimately, hopefully in 2026, then maybe taking that next step to making the playoffs, because that is just awful. Dude, 2 times in 14 seasons. I'm sorry, I don't want to rush y'all Giants fans, but y'all are a far way away from winning in 2011 and like y'all did in 2007 over the Patriots both times. But that was the last time Giants fans were able to really be prideful and embrace their team, because since then, like I said, they have been a dumpster fire in the NFL. And that sucks to say for those New York fans, because the Giants have 4 Super Bowls, which ranks them 6th in NFL history. So they're a top 10 franchise in terms of overall Super Bowls, but they have not represented that standard at all in the past decade plus. They have legendary players in their franchise history, like a Lawrence Taylor, who was arguably the best defensive end of all time. Phil Simms, who was a legendary quarterback for the New York Giants as well, too, who played for them for 14 seasons, led them to win Super Bowl 21 and Super Bowl 25. Eli Manning, of course, led them to 2 Super Bowl victories. And they've had players like a Michael Strahan in their history recently, Justin Tuck, Victor Cruz, Jason Pierre-Paul for them as well, too. And I don't want to get too far away, because the Giants, they've been around literally since the year 1920. 2025. So we're talking about 100 seasons, which is certainly something to celebrate. But they've had a lot of players in their history to be Hall of Famers and potentially future Hall of Famers as well too. We'll see about the Eli Manning thing. I know he was eligible to make it this past year, but didn't make it. But I think eventually he probably will, just because of the name alone and what he was able to do. But that's another debate for another day. But I bring up all that to say that the Giants, they are a far cry away from that. But like I said, the moves that they have made are certainly into that right direction. But them winning 7 or even 8 games might be a stretch as well too, based on the pure fact of them having the toughest schedule in the NFL this season. And I talked about in my previous NFL previews of this NFC East, and of course this being the last one with the New York Giants. All teams in NFC East have a top 10 toughest strength of schedule in its 2025 season, and that sucks for the Giants how the cookie crumbled for them, because they have the toughest one. And I'm just gonna read off their schedule right now. So off ripping week 1, they play against the Washington Commanders, then the Dallas Cowboys in week 2, the Kansas City Chiefs week 3, Chargers week 4, week 5 the Saints, week 6 against the defending champion, the Philadelphia Eagles, for the first time being in their division, of course. Then the Broncos, that's another tough game. The Eagles again, they play the Eagles 2 times in 3 weeks, so that's a bad break right there. Then they have to play against the 49ers, the Bears, the Packers, the Lions, the Patriots, the Commanders again, the Vikings, the Raiders, and then finishing off against the Dallas Cowboys in week 18. That's 8 teams who made the playoffs in 2024 that they're going to be playing against in this upcoming 2025 season, in the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Commanders, Broncos, Chargers, Packers, Lions, and Vikings. So that's a tough break right there. And alongside of that, the teams who didn't make the playoffs last year, I think the Dallas Cowboys, they're going to be improved tremendously. And I think the Giants last won a game against the Dallas Cowboys in the 2020 COVID season, and that's when Dak Prescott was hurt as well too. So I don't even know if that counts, but it's almost been 5 seasons since the Giants literally won a single game against the Cowboys. So that's a tough break right there. Then you make the argument that the Bears are going to be improved. Not the Saints. No offense to Saints fans. The Patriots, that'll be a tough team I think too as well, because they've added some different pieces on the defensive end, but also offensively as well too. And Drake May in year 2, alongside Mike Vrabel being the new head coach in New England, who we know is a culture shifter for sure and one of the best coaches in the league, and Josh McDaniels being in his familiar role at offensive coordinator too. The Patriots, that'll probably be a tough game as well too. So like I said, the Giants, they have the toughest schedule in the league, and now even looking at it from that vantage point too, maybe 7 to 8 games might be a little generous. Maybe they'll probably be 6 and 11, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt in terms of them continuing to improve their defense, and maybe their defense is going to be the huge anchor to this team, because we've seen teams in the past be really carried by their defense to stay in it and win games, and then offensively just being steady. I think in the modern NFL, that's not enough to win a Super Bowl or be serious contenders, but that has been proven, case in example, by the Pittsburgh Steelers to be enough to potentially make the first round of the playoffs. Now, I'm not saying the Giants are going to do that, because I do not think that's going to happen. And also, the Steelers have one of the greatest coaches of all time in Mike Tomlin. But with that being said, the Giants could have a formula while Russell Wilson is starting to being steady, and if they potentially give the reins to Jackson Dart in the middle of the season or later in the season to continue to be solid and finish strong, that could be a formula for them in the future. But I just don't think it's going to be enough for them to make the playoffs this upcoming season, because it is too tough. Their schedule is too tough, and also I don't trust their offensive line at all. That's one thing as well too. It doesn't even matter if Russell Wilson plays similarly to how he did before the Steelers fell off in the regular season last year too. If you're not getting that protection that you need, man, your offense is going to fall apart. We saw that even from a playoff contender like the Texans last year too with their offensive line, and PFF literally just ranked their offensive line being 32nd overall in the league. And if you look at what PFF ranked the New York Giants offensive line, the Giants are also ranked near the bottom at the 28th position overall for their offensive line group, which I think is valid, because you just can't trust them, like I said. So there's a lot of question marks with this team for sure. How good can the Giants be this upcoming season? I think at most 7-10 or 8-9, but realistically, don't be surprised if this team only wins 5 or 6 games again, and is potentially fighting for a top 5 to 10 pick again too, because it is just tough. And they, like I said, they were dealt a bad hand having the toughest schedule for this upcoming 2025 NFL season. I think that we for sure should not underestimate the type of impact that Abdul Carter can have on this defensive line. Last season alone, he had 12 sacks, 24 tackles for loss, 43 solo tackles, and 25 assisted tackles, and also 2 forced fumbles. So certainly he's going to be incredible as a pass rusher for sure, and also getting to the quarterback, that's going to be his main thing. We will also see how good he is as a run stopper as well too, because I talked about that Micah Parsons comparison as well. That was something that Micah has continuously had to learn, is still continuing to learn, because if not only Micah Parsons, but if Abdul Carter can add that element to his game and being a really respectful and a good run stopper as well too, that's going to unlock a lot, and it's just going to open up his game even more and make offensive lines more honest and having to send double teams and maybe even triple teams at times too, depending on the scheme and the opponent. their division alone is rough. I think 3 teams are going to make the playoffs this upcoming year, and I do not think the Giants will be one of them. And then if you look at the NFC, it's continuing to improve and get better. The defending champions in the Philadelphia Eagles, they're going nowhere. Still have the Detroit Lions, who were a juggernaut last year until they got upset by the Commanders in the divisional round. Have the Commanders too. Have the Vikings, who have one of the best defenses in the league, and we'll see how JJ McCarthy is. Mention the Cowboys in the division too as well. I think they're going to make the playoffs and be improved and better as long as Dak stays healthy, and the addition of George Pickens and them adding defensive reinforcements, I think is going to be solid for them too. And I think the Cowboys have a better coaching staff as well, which I talked about in my Cowboys season preview, which you can check out. Still, I think the 49ers, as long as they're mostly healthy, they're going to be back in the mix. The Buccaneers added reinforcements as well too. The Los Angeles Rams also. The Packers too. I'm telling you guys, there are a lot of teams in the NFC that are going to be really good this upcoming season. And unfortunately for New York Giants fans in the city of New York, I do not believe that they will be one of them. Like I said, me saying that their ceiling is being 7-10 or 8-9, I think y'all should look at that as a positive, but don't get your expectations too high, because ultimately that's still not going to be enough to make the playoffs. And I think regardless, they're not going to make the playoffs. But hey, we've been proven wrong before. Literally last season, the Commanders made the conference championship, and no one expected them to be even close to that, or even being close to a playoff team, if we're being honest. So anything is possible in the NFL. It's very unpredictable, but I feel pretty safe about this pick. But I think that the Giants, they'll be improved. I think it still won't be enough for them to be playoff contenders. I think they'll be moving in the right direction. I think Brian Daboll is going to keep his job and improve that offense, but it's just going to be really tough for this New York Giants team in 2025, in my humble opinion. But shoot, let me know what y'all think in the comments down below, guys. How good do you think that the New York Giants will be in this upcoming 2025 season? Do you think they could potentially make the playoffs, or are y'all aligned with me thinking that they'll be improved but still not enough to be a playoff contender? Or do you think that they'll just be shite again and picking at the top of the draft again in 2026? Y'all let me know in the comments down below for sure, because I honestly wouldn't be surprised by that, but I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, recognizing that they improved their team, but certainly a lot has to go right for them to even win 3 to 5 more games for sure. But yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. Always make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and turn on post notifications. For the season preview series in the NFL, the next division that we'll be talking about is the AFC East, and with that, the first team of that division that we'll be talking about is the Buffalo Bills. So we'll for sure have a lot of things to talk about them, because they are certainly a team who is so close but yet so far to getting to that Super Bowl that they're trying to get in franchise history. So I can't wait to talk about them and overall that whole AFC East division. And stay tuned for the rest of the 28 other teams that we're going to talk about, because I'm looking forward to it, guys, for sure. And the only reason why we had a little pause in terms of the season preview videos is because there's been a lot of NBA news to talk about, and I had to focus on that for sure. And expect that there's any other major news in NBA, we're going to talk about that simultaneously alongside of previewing these NFL teams for this upcoming 2025 season. So y'all stay tuned for that for sure. Looking forward to it, and y'all stay tuned for this upcoming Buffalo Bills video, because like I said, that's going to be a banger and a really good one, I feel like. But yeah, guys, y'all keep being blessed. Keep Jesus Christ at the center of your life always. Know that you matter, you are loved, you have purpose, and God has so many great things for y'all, guys. So y'all keep being legendary. Hit me up on Instagram at SwaggyRuss, at TikTok at SwaggyRuss02. Hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications. We have a lot more content to post, guys, and I'm just looking forward to it. Like I said, with this NFL season preview series, more NBA content, college football and basketball content, a lot of stuff on the way, guys. Marvel DC content, a lot of pop culture stuff too as well. So y'all keep being blessed. Know that you matter. I love you guys, and hey, y'all have a good one, and I hope y'all are enjoying y'all summer. Peace.